Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Independent Living Skills, Preparing Young Adults for Life on Their Own. Today's presentation is being hosted by Transition Matters New Jersey, a program of the Family Support Center of New Jersey, and presented by Rick Kinzel, the Director of College Living Experience, the Rockville location. Before we begin, let's take a minute to go over how you can participate during today's web event. You each have your own control panel in the upper right corner of your screen that looks similar to the one here. Use an orange arrow to open or hide your control panel. To listen to the webinar, you have two audio options to choose from: mic and speakers and telephone. If you can't hear well using your computer's speaker, you can elect to use the telephone to listen to the webinar. In order to maintain the best sound quality possible, all but the presenters will be muted throughout the webinar. If you have questions or comments, you can submit them using the questions panel. We will try to get to all questions at the end of the webinar as long as time allows. At this time, I would like to introduce Rick. Rick, you should have control of the screen.
I have it. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As I was introduced, my name is Rick Kinzel. I'm the Director at College Living Experience in Rockville, Maryland. I come with about 15 years of residential education experience, and I've been the director here at College Living Experience for 4 years. I also have a daughter with a disability, so all too familiar with a lot of the topics that families run into. College Living Experience is a wraparound program that provides supports to young adults that are entering into college. We have been around for about 25 years. The center here in Rockville has been in existence for 8 years. Our goal is to provide a safety net for young adults as they move into college and into life. They don't always have to be college track. They can also be students that are working to get out of home and into life on their own. I can certainly answer more questions about College Living Experience at the end, and my contact information will be at the end of the presentation as well for everybody. The three core areas that we support are in academics, social programming, as well as independent living skills. Today we'll talk about independent living skills and try to give a little bit of examples of things that families will want to work on as they get ready to transition out of their home. So what do we know? Independent living skills impact and influence the classroom success. In other words, if they're disorganized in their living skills, they're going to be disorganized in their classwork. Students struggle with self-selection of their time. In other words, how do they use their time? How do they balance their time now that they're out on their own? An inability to follow a schedule or know what to do with their time. Have in many cases. So when they have that inability not to manage their time, it impacts across the board their success. Personal hygiene. That also intersects with social acceptance. In other words, smelly equals no friends and hard to acquire friends. And then self-advocacy. Self-advocacy skills are so essential. Knowing how to advocate for yourself and it impacts your future successes. And I'll warn you though, our center is in a high-rise building and about 4 floors up. You'll hear the fire station's about 2 blocks down, so you're going to hear fire trucks go by. I don't know if you just heard that one. So things to ponder as your students getting out and getting ready to transition out. For the students, you want to talk to them. Where would they like to live? And who would they like to live with? How involved do they want to be in their community? And then what ways can they get involved with their community? And how your responsibilities would differ after high school. And will they be living on their own? It's those responsibilities that differ after they get out of high school and begin to transition onto their own that we'll begin to talk more about here in just a second. As many of you know, there are many things that impact our students. Greatly, it can be executive functioning or dysfunctioning. I'm betting that many of you have heard this term. Executive functioning is our ability to manage multiple tasks. There's our autopilot to get things done. Think about when you get in to take a shower. I'm sure that many of you don't think about what order you're going to bathe your body in. You just go in and you do it. That's all taken over by executive functioning. Dysfunctioning would be then not able to walk through those steps, not able to plan them out, not able to plan them out step by step. And these are challenges that a lot of our students come up against. So what are the executive functions? Some of them are listed here below. For example, keeping track of time, knowing when to ask for help when necessary, multitasking various functions throughout their lives, planning and organizing for projects, engaging in group dynamics, and then generating and evaluating ideas on how to solve problems in their lives. Executive functioning comes into play tremendously with the independent living skills. Some strategies for executive functioning is helping students organize their time using visual schedules, technology, chunking of projects, and designating time frames for each thing to do, thereby creating a to-do list. Helping students organize their space as well is a big factor in executive functioning. Helps decreasing clutter in their work area, and hopefully then leads to decreasing clutter in other areas, and designating certain places for certain materials. So as we go through today and talk about some of the other executive functioning, the other independent living skills that you can work with your students, keep in mind these executive functioning pieces and then how we can break them down for the students as they go forward. Okay, independent living skills. As you begin to prepare your student to move out on their own and to begin to learn to be independent, it's so critical that we are practicing all of these skills with them. One of the things that we find as students come to us as they're transitioning out of high school and into college, moving out of their home and living into an apartment, is that they get very used to living at home and having what I like to call magical fairies at home, taking care of things for them. Not that you're doing everything for them, but those magical fairies are wonderful in that as a student I can get home tonight and decide to make a hot fudge sundae, and I get my sprinkles, and I get my marshmallow topping, my hot fudge, my chocolate mint chip ice cream, lay it all on the counter and make this wonderful big bowl of ice cream. Sprinkles fall on the counter, a little marshmallow dressing gets on the counter. I go and eat my ice cream bowl, and I come back and sit it on the counter and go to bed. I get up in the morning, and lo and behold, the magical, wonderful fairies came in and took care of everything for me. Counter's clean, everything's spick and span, I can have my breakfast, go through the same process, and leave it all there and go about my day. Come home from school, and again, the magical fairies have taken care of things. One of the biggest culture shocks that our students have is that they come out, they get into an apartment or into a dorm setting, and that first day they go through the same thing. This is great, I'm in my new place, I'm going to create a celebratory Sunday, go through the same process, and then get up the next morning and, oh, what happened? The fairies no longer came and cleaned up when I was my mess. The ice cream's still there, it's now melted into soup, the sprinkles are still all over the counter. Oh. And so you get the picture. The thought process is, oh, I'll just leave that there. Maybe the magical fairies will come back later. I'll eat my breakfast at the other end of the counter. And they come back after lunch and the same thing. It's all there. So the point being is that our students get used to us picking up the loose ends for them and doing that. So as we talk today, really think about in your own household, what are those loose ends that you are doing for your students that you can stop doing? And for me, I'll be real honest, I'm a little bit of a type A personality, so I like things to be neat and orderly and in their place. And it will absolutely drive me bug crazy if there's a sock laying on the floor. But I know that I'm only enabling if I go over there and pick it up and take care of it for my daughter. So it's very important that we allow that to play out and let them take a role in how to do that. Some of the independent living skills components that we'll talk about today will relate to home, they'll relate to body, food, and money. And Melanie, I can't see, just so you're aware, I can't see any messaging on the right-hand side of that bar closed, so if you need me or need me to pay attention, just holler in and I'll change. Home organization skills. So these are some of the skills that we are working with on students on a daily basis and things that families should be working with. I like these slides because they give you a good list of things that you can work on. it's important that you know your student and what gets in their way with each of these. Have daily routines for your students. A morning routine, a daytime routine, and an evening routine. I don't care, and you will have to find the strategy that works best for you. I don't care if you write it down into list or if you just review it verbally with your student. Depending on where they're at, you're going to have to tweak your goals for your student. I know in our house we have some set lists that both my kids know to look after and know what they need to take care of each morning before they leave the house for school, when they come home after school, and then before they head to bed. It's helpful and helps them keep organized. There's other routines that they know that they do that we don't have written down. Discuss with your family, discuss with your student what will work best for them. The goal is to set them up for success, not to nag. It's to set them up for success. As you work through these home organization goals, think about those things that you can let lie, that are not going to, they may drive you nuts, but think about those things that you can let lie with your student. Find ways to help them follow up on, find ways to help them get more organized without sending yourself over the edge, and also not feeling like you're nagging on them. Think about, as you go through their daily routine on these lists, what are the things that you can help them take ownership of on a daily basis and on a weekly basis, and in some cases on a monthly basis. Think about those things and activities that you can help them be a part of and participate in across the board. It's wonderful as a parent that you do a lot of this stuff and a lot of these skills for the students in some cases, but it's also important that you're exposing them to these skills and helping the students understand what the organization process is like and how to manage some of it. On this bedroom side, I wanted to point out, we talk about medication stored and pillbox filled. We'll talk about this in just a moment. Really important that you start to set those settings up, and I'm going to go ahead and slide forward a little bit as we talk about body and move past. I think the medication piece is a big piece to talk about. For many of our students, as they transition out of home, they have not been responsible for managing and organizing their medications. This has been something that families have always done, that by law the school districts have to administer for them if they're taking a daytime medication. They've not been able to hold on to or manage. It's important that if you haven't already begun using a system for your student, that you start to create a system. Discuss using a pillbox, that blue and white piece there in the middle of the slide. We find them very helpful, and I encourage you to use one for as many times a day that your student takes medication. If they're taking AM and PM, you can get a 2-slot pillbox that's just shown here. If they're taking an AM, PM, and maybe a noon medication, you can get a 3-row box. It's just got one more middle layer in it. And then work with your student to use a keychain pill fob to carry their keys with them, as shown on the right-hand side of that pillbox. These pillboxes are great in that they become a visual reminder for the students on what they need to take throughout the day. You can easily go to the pillbox instead of nagging your student, did they take their medication? You can go to the pillbox and eyeball the pillbox to see that they've taken their medication that morning or that night. For the noontime meds, the same thing. That pillbox should be empty and it should be in their key fob. It does mean that you do have to have periodic checks to make sure that they're taking their medication at the right times, but using a pillbox helps give the student more ownership in that. You can work with the student to fill that medication box typically once a week. I wouldn't go any further than that, and I would just select one night that works best for the family to fill the box. And that's going to depend on the family. For us at the center here, we typically do it on one of the nights that we're in the apartments for their independent living skills instruction. Household-wide, maybe it's Sunday night, is tamer for you and your household, then do it Sunday night. The students should begin to fill this pillbox, taking ownership in the pillbox and having a greater understanding of what their medications are. When they're filling that pillbox, you'll be there to eyeball it to make sure that they're getting the pills in the right compartment, and that when they're getting down to 10 pills or less in their bottle, that you're working with the students to call in their prescription to the pharmacy. They should begin to learn how to call these prescriptions into the pharmacy. Again, as they move out into college and as they move out onto their own, they're going to need to learn systems in order to keep track of that. Once they call in that prescription, I would have them go through the process of going to the pharmacy and picking it up. As you all are, I'm sure, know, there are some bumps and things that can happen at the pharmacy, and it's good now with your support to have the students go through that and be exposed to that. The other piece that's helpful with medication that I would strongly encourage parents to do is to set phone reminders for those students. Most students have cell phones now and should have cell phones with them at all times. You can use the calendar setting on the iPhones, the Droid phones, and even onto flip phones to set calendar reminders and time reminders on when to take medication. Set consistent times and set a reminder for your student to remember to take their medication at those specified times. Hygiene. Hygiene can be extremely offensive, and if your student struggles at this, move this up to the priority list along with learning how to manage their medication. Help them create routines, time frames to do it, and when they can walk through those routines and check back with you. Help them take ownership in it. Sometimes that's going to mean sending your student upstairs multiple times to take care of various things that should be routine, but to take care of it. Me, it's reminders for my daughter to go up 3 or 4 times in the morning to make sure she's brushing her hair all the way around. You know, it started out with just reminders to do deodorant and build up from there. Remember with all these, as you give suggestions and tips to your students, find ways to help them take ownership, find ways to help them have systems to remember. Maybe it's reminding the student at night as they're getting ready to go to bed that they pull out their brush and they pull out their deodorant and lay it on their dresser top as a visual reminder. Sometimes you're going to use checklists on the back of their door or on the bathroom mirror to give them a checklist that they can visually go off of and work off of. Another piece that's hugely important for independent living skills is time management. Most students are going to have a planner or something that they are using in high school. Many of the high schools down here require the students to use them on a daily basis. Some use them great, some not so great. Really important that you are working with your student to use a daily planner. And this is a weekly schedule that's shown on here. I would really use a daily planner that allows them space to write in their to-dos for each of their things that they need to do throughout the day. Something that you want to work with your students, and I'm sure many of you are very similar to me. I get up in the morning and I go do my workout and I go for a run, and one of the first things I do is I come back and grab my calendar. I'm looking at the things that I need to do for the day. I'm looking at then with those appointments what I need to do for each of those appointments. And sometimes it's mental notes to prep ahead of time. It's the same thing that we want our students to get in the habit of doing. Sitting down, looking at their daily schedule, thinking of the things that they need to do in each of those appointments, and then what they need to plan for later on in the day. And right now, I'm sure for many of your students, it's planning to study or planning to take care of homework later in the evening. So making sure that they're scheduling and blocking out time and making sure that they are checking off things as they get them done on their to-do list, helping them to remain organized. I would suggest starting a student out using a paper calendar. Find something that works, find something that has space for their handwriting. If anybody's handwriting is as bad as mine, you're going to need a lot of space. At some point in time, you can transition them to using a digital, but I would start out with a paper and pencil. It's just easier to start out that way. And then as you transition into using a digital calendar, make sure that they're able to open up the appointments on that digital calendar and able to make notes in there on the things that they need to do in each of their appointments. So if they are planning to do study time tonight at 7 p.m., not only should that appointment say study time at 7 p.m., they should be able to open that up and see the items that they need to work on. They should have a to-do list for that study time. So doing Math 101, problems 1 through 50. reading English, pages 1 through 10. They should be able to list out in there what they're working on during that time. Another aspect to begin working on with your student is travel and getting out and about in the community. Many of our students are going to transition out to a school or work, and they're going to need to learn to navigate their community. I realize that there may be some communities that there's a limited amount of public transportation, but I'd strongly encourage you, even with the limited amount of public transportation, to get them exposed and get them used to using it. The concepts are going to be very much the same. How do you read the schedule? What happens when the bus is running a few minutes late? That can cause anxiety for our students. So getting out, practicing it, talking about it, and helping them have some experience and success with it. We're fortunate where we're based. The public transportation is great. Lots of buses, lots of trains, lots of metro. And we really do encourage the students to get out and use it all the time. Make sure that as you practice this and as they start to go out on their own, that you practice with them who they can ask for help. If they are taking a bus, encouraging them to talk to the bus driver. They can ask the bus driver, tell me when I get to the intersection of Q and 115th Street. They can ask the bus driver if they missed their point. Many of the students can also use Google Maps on their phones and track where they're at, and you can practice that with them and show them where the drop point is that they need to get off. They can also use their phones to call for help or to phone a friend if they get lost. That's quite okay to do. Sometimes it causes a lot of anxiety for our students to call somebody, and it's really okay. It's interesting, as we have students that come down and visit us here and stay with us, we have a lot of students that haven't had access or exposure to using public transportation. And for a lot of us, we go, oh, that's easy. You just get on the bus, you go up 3 stops, and you get off to the apartments or to the college. And inevitably, every year as we have new students come in, we spend a lot of time talking about how to travel. We practice it with them many times. And then usually the first or second time that they go on their own, they get onto the bus and open up a book or pull up their iPhone and start playing Candy Crush. And 18 stops later, they realize that they hadn't gotten off in the 5-minute span that they should have. So it's okay, and reinforcing that it's okay that they can call in, and you can walk them back through how to get around that once they have problems, if they have problems. Exercise is an independent living skill. Please don't expect your students to become triathletes if they have not been one in high school. Certainly encourage healthy lifestyles, certainly encourage them to get engaged in clubs and those type of things. Don't expect wonders as they transition out into college. It probably will get worse before it gets any better. If they've not been an athlete from day one, they are not going to be a triathlete when they move out on their own. That's okay. Help them, work with them through that. Help them find ways to get engaged in their community socially. This one group has students wearing laser tag. Believe it or not, if you haven't played laser tag, you can actually get a decent workout in it playing laser tag. At least get your heart rate up for a little bit for the 10 minutes that you're in there. Getting them exposure to doing those different things is great. As you are working with your should warn you that my office also has a window that faces into the hallway, so I have one of my students is making a funny face at me. As your students get ready to leave on their own and you know that they're going to be doing grocery shopping, even if it's just for snacks, you really want them to begin to be thoughtful shoppers and begin to plan. Have your students begin to help you plan out your weekly menu before you go grocery shopping. Many of us do it mentally before we go grocery shopping. It's routine. We kind of think about what food we have in the house, and we know kind of what we're going to eat throughout the week, what sounds good. And a lot of times we're not making a list, but we really do. With our students with executive dysfunction problems, executive functioning problems, we really do want them to create a list. So sit down with them. Talk through with them what they would like to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the next week. Help them build a grocery list off of that. So taking your meal plan, the things that they want to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and going to each cabinet, see what's on in your cabinet, in your pantries, and help them create a grocery list off of that. Expose them to going to the grocery store, looking for their favorite items, getting exposure to sale items, how to ask about a price if they're not certain of, how to buy things by weight. Start to get them exposure to that. Another aspect that is so critical as students begin to get out, and one that I think becomes a challenge for our families, is getting students exposure to money and managing their money. Learning to live within a budget. The reality is, as they move out into their own, into adulthood, and into college, the magical fairies aren't going to follow them. If you're not sitting down with them and keeping your students to a budget, I would encourage you to do so. Start out on a weekly basis. Work on a cash basis. So if they have, you guys decide, you and your family decide that your student's going to have $40 a week in walking around cash, that should be their walking around cash. That is their going out to eat with friends money. That's their going to movies money. That's their going to Starbucks money. Even if they go with you, that is their Starbucks money. If they blow it all on the first day that they get their allowance or their walking around cash, help them understand how to manage that and how to balance it. That also means that if you go to Starbucks and they don't have money, I'm going to tell you not to buy them a Starbucks. Let them feel that pain a little bit. Work with your students to begin to understand where their money's coming and going. Work with them to create systems to keep receipts. The guys, they can keep them in the front part of their billfold. The girls can also keep them in their billfold or a pocket in their purse. Help them keep receipts. Help them review the receipts and where their spending is going. Help them begin to think about it in a monthly framework in regards of what things do they have coming up, what bills or events do you know that they're going to have coming up. For my kids, we worked with them initially on a weekly basis. They're now on a monthly basis, which means they have to plan with their spending money where their money is going to go throughout the month. And one of them does really good about balancing it, and the other one not so good. And there's been some pain involved with that. Our rules surrounding it is that as they get invited to birthday parties and that, they are responsible to buy the birthday gifts out of that money. They have a set amount that they have to be able to have that we set that's acceptable to purchase a birthday present for a friend to attend a party. If they don't have enough money in their savings to go, then they're not going to be able to go. So work with your students to begin to balance out where their spending goes, how they're managing it, and how they're keeping track of their receipts. Expose them to writing checks. A lot of students don't have checkbooks as they leave high school, but begin to expose them to that. Begin to expose them on how a ledger works and how they can track their spending. We do it with our students here. I've not done it personally with my students at home, but I have seen another family do it with their student at home, that they took a check ledger and essentially did their walking around cash as a deposit, and then all of their expenses came out at the end of the week as a withdrawal. So they worked through with the student how that worked and what it looked like. I thought it was a great idea in helping teach the student how to manage their money and how to balance it out. So independent living skills, the biggest piece that we have to help our students is learning how to be independent and stepping away from us. And all these skills that we talked about are critical. I think one of the biggest challenges that families have is being able to hold their students to that next standard and to be okay with the pain. And I shared with you early on that my biggest piece, I am a little bit of an organization nut, and it will drive me bloody crazy sometimes when things are left laying around, but I know it's in my daughter's best interest to leave those things lie, let her feel a little bit of a consequence in having to take care of it prior to being able to engage in fun time, and let her feel some of that pain. She's changing her behavior, and we're slowly changing it, and it just takes time. Remember that if you are sending your student out on their own, whether it's a dorm or an apartment with or without supports, it's critical to give them all that practice. Give them all that practice before they head out. Household skills, I want to jump back to. We talked about household skills just briefly, and I flipped through some of that list. Please make sure that as you are practicing household skills with your students, that they are getting exposure to doing their laundry, knowing how the different settings on the washer and dryer work, that they're getting exposed to how the dishwasher works and how to wash a pot and pan. Work with them on the basic cooking skills, boiling water, making sure that they know how to use a microwave. Sit with them to make sure that they are practicing how to prepare a meal and cook a meal, how to present a meal over time. Those are bigger skills, but those are skills that we want to start to expose our students to, that they're taking control of and running as they're with us under our watch before we send them out on their own to do. Remember that with laundry, if you leave it set in the washer for a longer period of time, 8, 10, 12 hours, it's going to get musty smelling. So reminding students how to stay on top of that, how to manage that. All these things can be practiced, and things that you are doing for them, take a step back. Take a look at the things that you do for your students now as it relates to household chores. See what you can step back on. Quit being their magical fairy for them. Allow them to take some of that on themselves. Be there as a support network and continue to keep pulling back that support as they get closer to transition and moving out on their own. At this point in time, I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule. It's a little bit interesting for me doing this because I'm used to having a very interactive group, and so I know I've been talking a lot, and I'd like to spend time trying to answer questions about independent living skills. I think, Melanie, if you'd like, we can answer questions about college living experience, but may hold off toward the end. Let's try to answer most of the people's questions about independent living skills first.
Rick, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate all the information that you were able to share with us today. We're getting a lot of positive feedback. Rick, before we move forward, can I ask, would you be willing to share your PowerPoint with the attendees? Are you comfortable if I emailed the PowerPoint out to share the slides?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect, perfect. I know we had a lot of requests for that. Rick, can I ask, if someone doesn't have metro transportation in their area, what would you suggest them doing to gain some of the travel skills needed?
If there's not buses in their area?
Yes.
Right, if you're asking, yeah. I'd try to find some place that you can get them exposed to. Take a long weekend, go into a bigger city. It doesn't have to be D.C., it doesn't have to be New York City, but find a city that's got fairly decent, reputable transportation and walk them through the system. You know, coming down to D.C. is great. It's so commuter friendly. And there's so much stuff online. I think most of the transit places now are putting a lot of their stuff online, and they're also really doing a nice job of becoming accessible. And so they're making a lot of this stuff available online. Metro in this area, you know, it's with a quick call that you can talk with somebody that's got experience about working with young adults or individuals with disability in the metro area. So there's many things that you can do, and so if you don't have it in your area, I'd plan a long weekend and just make that your focus, that you're going to go and get around by buses somewhere. Just to expose them to what the schedules look like, expose them to how to look for key points, give them practice to ask the bus driver. Again, if you're planning to get off at, I don't know what I said, Q Street and 115th, you know, it's okay to ask the bus driver that. You just explain that you're new to the area, and can you give them an indicator? Can the bus driver give the student an indicator on when it's time to get off?
Perfect. Yeah, you know, just for an example, my son's 16, and around where we live, we do not have busing available. So when I really take advantage of the opportunities when I go to visit my sister who lives in more of the city area. When we go into New York, we'll take public transportation instead of driving there. And again, those are really a lot of teachable opportunities that come naturally, you know, in different areas. And I think recognizing that our children are not always going to live with us, and not knowing sometimes where that exact area is going to be, allowing those opportunities to be had now, so that when the opportunity does come up in their future, they'll be better prepared. So thank you.
Absolutely correct. And sometimes it slows down the family vacation, if you will, to take public transportation, but it's that exposure that's so great.
Perfect. Rick, how can someone reward their child when the child does make an effort to organize themselves, so that that child can continue to develop those organization skills?
I'm going to try not to go down my, I'm sorry, I can't pop that phone for me, so it's going to ring for a second. You know, there's things that you can do, and whether, I don't know how well you can hear me, whether you set up a token economy system for your student so that they're earning some reinforcers. We set up, I'll just give an example with my daughter. We set up, it's not necessarily constant, she gets tons of verbal praise throughout the day, and when we know there's things that she's been working on or we've been slowly working on with her. But there's also things that she can't access until she's taken care of some things. So she can't access her iPod, she can't use her radio until she's taken care of the things and then check back with us. So we're not chasing her around. She comes, checks back with us, and then she says, you know, can I use my radio? And that's super. So it gives us an opportunity to reinforce her at that moment for checking back, gives us a chance to reinforce her for taking care of the things she needs to do, and then she can use her radio and make use of it.
Perfect.
That, if we don't do that, she loses her ever bloody mind in listening to music, and we never see her again. So,
oh, I can relate. You know, it's funny, during the presentation when you were talking about teaching around those moments of what I call the what if situations, the what if I miss the bus, the what if I don't have enough money to order Starbucks. I think that that's a really good reminder for parents to start thinking about those situations, right? Because I think, and not that it's a fault, but I think it's an opportunity that we need to see that can be had. I know I always say that for now that I look back at it for many years, I almost learned helplessness by setting up all the situations to go perfectly for my son. And I almost appreciate those situations now where you sort of hit that roadblock and you have to say, okay, we're going to stop and think about this. Now, how are we going to handle this situation? And really looking at those roadblocks as teachable moments. So, again, I thank you for pointing that out.
sure.
When we talk about assistive technology, can you talk about some areas, some additional areas that the assistive technology will allow someone to gain additional independence? I know that you mentioned it during the transportation piece.
You know, I think the biggest piece and the piece that we want to use most is scheduling, and getting the students to look at a schedule is probably the biggest piece. And I know it's not a huge hunk of technology to say go out and buy a spiral planner, but to me that's the biggest piece in helping our students stay organized. From there are just so many resources, and I think there's probably way too many resources out there in regards to assistive technology, in regards to apps and those type of things that you can download onto your phone. Somebody joked the other day that there's a reminder app to turn on your reminder app. You know, but I think to me I don't know if there's any one piece of assistive technology that I would say would be the best. I think many of the resources out there are really focused on making things disability accessible, and so the metro area does a nice job here in the DC metro to make things very accessible, and certainly there are a lot of avenues and places that you can go down. You know, and even if it's support groups, so I serve on the county commission on people with disabilities, so you can actually call into the commission staff liaison to get resources completely in the area. So I don't know if there's any one specific one. I think it's just finding what's going to work best, because there might be a phone app that works best for your son or daughter that would not work best for my daughter.
Absolutely. Also, on the to the family who asked that question on the transitionmattersnj.org website, we had conducted a transition and assistive technology webinar not long ago that is archived. So we would definitely encourage you to go on and listen to that webinar at a time that's convenient to you. And please feel free to reach out to the presenters of that session, along with myself. Again, my name is Melanie McGackin, or my coworker Yvonne Krebs, with any additional questions. So, when we're talking about young adults, we're talking about possibly independent living, more independence in within their community. Can you talk a little bit about any experience that you've had with introducing someone to a roommate, someone that they've maybe have never met before but will have to live with for a certain amount of time, whether that's for a college experience or just for someone who's choosing to live on their own? Is that something that you've had experience with and can share some advice?
Yeah, our students come to us and we're pairing them up with a roommate to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. They do get support here. It's not, we're not in the apartments. The students are truly living independent. Our focus, and as we talk with students and families about it, the big focus is going to be it's not about finding a lifelong bud, a lifelong friend. It is about learning how to navigate with somebody. So we spend time talking about personal space. So your bedroom's your bedroom, and you know how to help students draw a line for their own personal space, and then how to share that common space. And again, it's a lot of communication, a lot of, sorry about that, a lot of conversations with the students on how to manage that. You know, I would encourage a family to talk with their student about how they share the common space. In other words, just because you have your TV in the common space, that's actually common space for you and your roommate. So those are things that you share as roommates. Your bedroom is your space, and those are things that you use as yours, and your roommate can't use them without explicit asking permission before going in and getting. We actually start our students out when they move into the apartments. We have conversations about the common space, and that what's out there is they share. And if there is a communication problem, then we'll work with them on the communication problem and how to talk about that. Maybe somebody wants to watch NCIS, I don't know which one it is, but one of the NCISs and somebody else wants to watch SpongeBob. How do you come to that agreement? And so we work with them on how to problem solve that. We do, because a lot of our students come to us with some communication type problem on the spectrum. We encourage the students and ask them to come with their own set of dishes, their own set of cookware. So that helps minimize some of those roommate conflicts. It also makes it easier for the staff that are supporting them, or if they're out on their own and family are checking on them, to know that Johnny has the blue bowls and Bobby has the white ones, so you can kind of see who's not taking care of what. So those are things too that we find helpful in setting students up and to help avoid some of those roommate conflicts. They're going to happen, and it's reminding your students and even their roommate that it's going to happen. It's natural. It happens in our own household between people that have been married for 20 years. Those miscommunications are going to happen, and remind them that it's okay, and you help talk them through at that time.
Great. Excuse me. So Rick, we have a few questions coming in asking about some advice in regards to personal care. I'm not sure if you would have any suggestions to offer, so I am going to ask them. If you don't have any suggestions, that's something that the Family Support Center of New Jersey can find some resources and send to the families who are asking. But we have a family looking for any tricks to making shaving easier.
Yeah, I don't have one for that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So again, I would definitely encourage the person just to give us a call. I'll give you our number again before we hang up from the webinar, and we'll definitely find some resources. Would you have any suggestions in regards to someone who may lose their purse, losing their phone or wallet? Any organization skills that you could offer or suggestions around those areas?
It's going to happen.
Because I got to be honest, I could use those at this point in my life also. So
there's really not. I mean, the neatest thing now is with the phones, you can put it on. Most of the carriers now have tracking that you can track your phone, and then you can go in the cloud and shut things off through iPhone. I don't know how to do that, but somebody can tell me how. That'd be great. I know it exists in that regard, and that's probably the biggest thing. Other than that, the students that I know are going to have some bigger organizational problems like that. We try to minimize how much they're carrying around and how much things they're carrying in those things that they could potentially lose. And that's probably your best way to minimize some of the collateral damage from that.
Sure. I think, one of the things that we've started to do with my son is he knows just a very small example. It might not be the obviously the advice that the family's looking for, but when he comes home from school and he knows that as soon as you come home from school that, you know, the notebook from the teacher goes on the same spot in the counter as soon as you walk in. His backpack goes in the same spot as soon as you walk in. So maybe teaching that routine in regards to having that one place. You know, if you're going to school, the cell phone goes in the front pocket of the backpack. But again, we'll see if we can find some additional resources, and if we do, we will absolutely forward to the person who asked that.
You just described our routine, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Rick, what if you leave the child's mess out for them to clean up, but they do not perceive their mess as being a mess?
It's conversations with them, and it's a lot of pre-teaching before that event happens. So in other words, before you start putting things in place, get it to the point where you like it, and then walk them through what that expectation should look like. You know, we had a student not long ago that we knew coming into the organization was going to be a problem, that we got the apartment set up, the family got the apartment set up, and we had them take pictures. And then we were able to use those pictures as reference points for the student as they were with us. So if they were questioning about whether something was a mess or not, we'd go back to, okay, let's look at your reference pictures. Let's look at, you know, the baseline. Where do we want it to be at? And they looked at the picture and held it up in the room and go, oh, crud. Shoes and socks are in the middle of the floor. Right, let's take care of that. And then so there's a reference point there.
Okay.
So always start them out at one point. You can take pictures and get them and have them walk through what that should look like with them. And then find time throughout the month or the week or however you're most comfortable with that there is a reset point. Most of us have like a Saturday chore routine on the weekend. So whenever you choose to do your deep cleaning on a weekly basis or biweekly, however you choose to do it, I would make sure that that gets to a reset point, and so that they get practice always getting back to that reset point.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure that visual is actually a big help in guiding someone. Would you suggest that a family set up the doctors, a pharmacy, and specialists for their student near the campus, or keep the doctors and specialists at home?
You know, it's going to depend on the doctor. It's going to depend on if they're out of state or in state. We do it both ways here. There's going to need to be somebody to help them navigate it if they are going to school out of their home state or their hometown area. Somebody else is going to have to help them navigate just that communication piece. That can be as easy as a Wednesday night phone call with your student. We do it both ways. Our families do it both ways when they come down to us. It works out okay. If they choose to find a doctor in the area, I would make several calls and try to find a doctor or a psychiatrist in the area that you are going to feel most comfortable with and that they are going to be okay with communicating directly with you from time to time. And most will be, but you just want to make sure you don't sign up with somebody that's going to not want to communicate with you or only through your student.
Wonderful. And just to go back real quick to the shaving question that someone had, we have a lot of other family members giving some great advice. Obviously, a good electric razor they're pointing out, but someone did point out that if you go on YouTube, that you can YouTube shaving, and it will provide some visuals to help prompt someone. So
Nice.
it might be a good resource for someone. Rick, can you share, is there a website listing for independent living skills goals and objectives showing steps to reach those goals?
We don't have one. We have the Independent Living Skills Checklist flipbook that we use and hand out to families to talk about, and we can, again, as we talked earlier, we can find a way to get you some, or people can send us their address and we can ship them one. It's a nice flip checklist that has different skills that you should be working on with your student. And certainly if you go to Amazon and just put in independent living skills, there's tons of resources out there. There's not one that jumps off at me. We've created most of ours in-house to work with our young adults that are with us.
Perfect. I will say when Rick and I actually met at a conference, and it's funny because I saw the CLE logo and I went right up to the table because I was sharing with Rick the flipbook is probably one of my favorite resources that we've used in incorporating some goals and objectives for my son's future IEP. So I think that that's a wonderful resource. Rick, if they call the 800 number, on the screen, is that a way that they can get connected with CLE to get a copy of the flipbook?
If they just want a copy of the flipbook, they can contact there, or they can email me directly just to ship. If they're really looking for, I'm sorry, my website, it's not up there, but I can put it up here in just a second. If they're really looking for information on college living experience, I would encourage them to call the 800 number. Holly is our outreach coordinator for the United States. She'll take some basic information. Her role is just to give information about college living experience as well as to make sure that we're going to be the best fit for each other across the board. So for the ILS checklist, if they want to email me and just say, hey, I saw you on a webinar, can you send me a checklist, please just email me. I am getting another shipment in. I shared with Melanie prior to this starting. I'm getting a new shipment in probably in 2 weeks, so it might be a little bit of a delay, but you'll get a winter holiday present down the road here, but we'll get them out to you as soon as I get them in.
Again, it's a wonderful, wonderful resource, really convenient. So Rick, I know we have about 6 minutes left. If you're willing, can we talk a little bit specifically about the CLE program?
Sure.
So do you want to give, I guess, is there anything that you would like to share about the CLE program before I start asking the questions that are coming in specific to that?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick snapshot. College living experience has been around for 25 years. The center in Rockville's been here for 8 years. We have 6 centers across the United States. So we're in the Rockville, D.C. area, Davie, Fort Lauderdale, Denver, Austin, and Costa Mesa, California, and Monterey, California. Each center draws regionally, so I have students that have come to us as far away as Maine, Illinois, and all the way down to North Carolina. At each center, the students live in 2-bedroom apartments near the center, near the school that they're attending. In the apartments, we are into the apartments providing independent living skills instruction, usually a couple nights a week, and we're taking them grocery shopping. At the center, they're getting academic supports and tutoring, as well as social programming and supports. It's important to know that we are not a 24-hour supervision program. This is not a group home, so our young adults have to be able to live pretty independently within the community. Each center has an RA, a residential advisor, that's on call 24/7 around the clock for the students. So they always have somebody, if something comes up or their anxiety's flaring up in the middle of the night or whatever, they always have somebody that they can reach out to. That should be us in a nutshell, and then we can maybe answer some quick questions.
Perfect. So if there's a student, or can a student attend your program if they are not going to post-secondary studies, but are only looking to seek independent living training?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Each center has a wide range. I know the name's a little bit confusing. Each center has a wide range of students. So I have students that are truly working on their BAs and finishing their BAs, to students that are working on job skills and life skills and working on learning how to be independent. Typically those students will still be taking some type of coursework or track work, either it's vocational or just skill building on English, reading, and math, as well as doing job skills and beginning to work on finding jobs and internships.
And is there a wait for the CLE services?
No, we bring students in usually each semester. We run year-round. So we'll have students joining us at the start of January, at some point in time in the summer, and then usually our largest class is in August, usually about the 3rd week in August. Right now there's not a wait list, though. I do encourage families to apply early. We'll start doing admissions meetings in January for summer and August starts. Each center has to make sure they have enough apartments available, so that's why getting in sooner rather than later is good. That would be probably the only thing that would limit is if we run out of apartment space.
Rick, what areas does the program run? Is it in every state?
No, so we have 6 centers across the United States, and each center will draw regionally around them. So I my center is located in Rockville, Maryland, about 9 miles outside of D.C. I have students from Maine, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, had them from Ohio, and I had them all the way down to North Carolina. So each center will draw regionally from where they're located, and we have 6 centers across the United States.
Perfect. And is there any financial support to assist in the cost for CLE? And I'm not sure, we do have some questions in regards to the costs. I'm not sure if you're comfortable talking about that in general terms, or if that has to be a private conversation.
Typically, the cost conversation is a private conversation. I will tell you that there's 3 areas of cost that families have to be aware of. It's our center fees and tuition. They would have the living, their living skills budget, and when students accepted with us, we set them down and create a budget with the family. The budget includes things like rent, utilities, walking around money, medication costs, transportation dollars, anything that we think the student's going to interact with on a monthly basis. Once that budget is set, we have the family open up a bank account near the center. Ours just happens to be in the same building as us, and that's the only money we want the students to have access to, because we're working with them to learn to live within a fixed budget. And I get crabby if families are slipping them money on the weekends. And then they also have the college cost, and each center's college cost will be a little bit different based on the institution. So that's a question that I think we can answer a little bit independently, because it will vary on each.
Perfect. And I'm sure it's an independent answer also, but can you just, I guess, address with a yes or no? Is there financial assistance that can be found to assist with those costs?
I'm sorry. There's nothing specific. For example, we had an Autism Society grant that we were able to give some scholarships to. We've had a student from New Jersey whose family went to the school district and was able to get some funding. We're getting some funding out of D.C. through their voc rehab dollars. We're working on Maryland right now and the incorporation, just so we're based here, and then they've got to work on stuff that's going on in the state before they're bringing on new vendors. But we don't have any scholarships per se, but there are different ways. I think if you start pounding the pavement, certainly reach out to Autism Society and other resource groups like you guys to get support in that area.
Absolutely. Actually, Yvonne Krebs is a wonderful resource coordinator within the Family Support Center of New Jersey, so she may be able to assist with some guidance around that area also. Under the Family Resource Network, we have the Epilepsy Foundation of New Jersey along with Autism Family Services of New Jersey, and they both offer scholarships to students with that specific diagnosis who are looking to further their education. So that's something that families can look out for also. So Rick, I think we're at our time. So again, I thank you so much for taking your time to share this information with everyone.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Great. And on behalf of the Family Support Center of New Jersey, Transition Matters of New Jersey, Rick Kinzel with the College Learning Experience, we would like to thank you for joining us this afternoon. We encourage you to please explore future trainings and webinar topics with us at fscnj.org. And if you have any questions in regards to any of the resources that we spoke about today, please feel free to give the Family Support Center of New Jersey a call at 1-800-372-6510. And Rick's information is still up on the screen, so I would encourage you to note that also. And this webinar will be archived within a week or so on our website. So if there's any part of the session that you missed, you'll be able to access that. And Rick, I know that you said I could share the PowerPoint, so everyone who attended today's session can expect an email over the next couple of days with that. So again, thank you very much. And Rick, again, thank you so much. We look forward to working with you again in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.